before you just talk about your like actual knuckleball, you talked about how you were a conventional pitcher first.
Yeah.
Was a knuckleball part of your arsenal then?
Yeah, so when I started as a conventional pitcher, I would occasionally throw a knuckleball, but everybody thought it was like a fork ball.
Right.
And so I didn't really need it because I threw hard. I was a hard thrower when I was drafted. You know, I threw mid-90s and had a good changeup and a slider, and that's why I was drafted in the first round out of college. And as time went on, I just kind of wore out and then developed a knuckleball later in my career and really cultivated it probably from 1999 until 2005 when I started to throw it full time. But I really never featured it in a game.
Was it like an aha moment? Like you knew something had to change, right? After
Yes,
3 years.
yes. So I was just getting cups of coffee in the big leagues for about 3 years, and you know, I'd be up and down and up and down, and I'd grind it out for a while, and I just knew I needed something more, and I was capable of something more. And Oral Hershiser and Buck Showalter at the time were my manager and pitching coach, and they saw me throw a knuckleball on the side just playing catch. And they said,
For fun.
yeah,
That's
just for
what most
fun.
people
That's
do.
what we all do over there, you know. And the guy was like, it was ricocheting off his knee and stuff like that. And they thought, well, this guy may be able to do it. So they called me in the office, and they asked me in 2005 to commit to it full time. And so that's when I did it. In 2005, I committed to it full time. But it was at the encouragement of, you know, the leadership with the Rangers at the time. I was with Texas.
And at the time when you started that, just out of curiosity, how did you know if it was good? Like, you didn't have technology then, really.
No, yeah.
To tell you if it was good, it was just an optics thing.
Yeah, and with a knuckleball, two things will tell you if it's good. One is, can the catcher catch it? And two is, do you get swings and misses with it? And so you're throwing a ball, like I'm used to throwing a ball 95, all of a sudden I'm throwing a knuckleball at 68 to 75 miles an hour. If you don't have big time movement, hitters at that level are gonna crush it. They're gonna cover it well. And so they will give you instant feedback, and the way that the catcher handles it, how good he can catch it, does he catch it squarely, is he boxing balls a lot? That'll give you immediate feedback. But that was all the feedback we got, right? Was either the hitter's hitting one over the fence and it wasn't very good, or the catcher's missing it and it tells you it's a pretty good one.
When you started throwing the knuckleball after those first 3 years, what did it look like then, if you can remember?
Yeah.
To what it looked like when you were at your peak and essentially
Yeah.
2012.
So there was a real metamorphosis for me. Like, I think Oral Hershiser and Buck Showalter saw my knuckleball, and they saw Tim Wakefield come into Ranger Stadium and just, you know, he would kill us every time. Our guys would be messed up for a week, it seemed like, after he would come through. And they saw me and they thought, we might get another Tim Wakefield if we can develop RA. But my personality with the pitch wasn't a slow knuckleball. And so for those first 3 years I was trying to learn it, I was trying to be Tim Wakefield.
Sure.
But when I really kind of embraced that I had my own identity with the pitch and that I could throw it harder and I could still subtract spin, which is what I'm trying to do with the knuckleball, like that's the name of the game, I started to improve a little bit at a time. And my real aha moment didn't come until 5 years after I started. So it was a real grind. I mean, 2005 to 2010 was a real grind, and trying to get the muscle memory and unlearn all the things you learn as a conventional pitcher and try to relearn a good knuckleball mechanic.
Sure. When was the first time you had some data involved with it where you were like, all right, now I can do a couple things and really get an understanding of what the ball's doing?
Well, you know, the data for us was real rudimentary back then. So even in 2009, 2010, it was all about, can I throw it for a strike? First pitch strike percentage, that's a data point for me. Swing and miss, that's a data point. But I didn't get any kind of real feedback from instantaneous feedback.
This is like, you're talking about data in terms of results, not data in terms of this is what the ball's
That's,
actually doing.
yeah, I had, and nobody had any of that. The only thing that I could do was I could throw a pitch, and if I could read the writing on the ball, I knew I threw a good one. Right, like if the ball came at you and it didn't rotate, and I could see that it wasn't rotate, that was the only feedback I really got.
In terms of games throughout the season, right? How many starts were you doing in an average season?
30.
30? All right. So how long did it take you each game to figure out, I got it today, or I'm going to get whacked?
Well, you know, I learned to separate early how I performed in the bullpen, warming up for the game, to how I got in the game. Because a lot of times, you know, weather conditions come into play. So for instance, if the bullpen mound is a different direction than the game mound, then I'm getting different wind, I'm getting different results.
And you can feel that.
And I could feel that. And so I had to kind of figure out, okay, well, I know here it's doing this, but when I get out there, it's going to be pushing it the opposite direction, or it's going to be moving differently. So I had to get real quick at being my own best coach.
Absolutely.
And when I went to work with Phil Necro and Charlie Huff and some of the real greats, that was the first thing they told me. They said, you're going to have to learn to be your own best coach.
Right.
And so that was my mission.
Was it a lot of changing within the game? Like, this isn't working right now.
Yeah, yeah, and thankfully I had enough of my conventional stuff that I could survive an inning or two until I got my knuckleball back. And most of the time, by 2010, I had built in enough muscle memory that I could get to it.
Sure.
Now it might take some work,
Right.
but I could usually get to it. Yeah, it was going to come. I was confident I was going to get to it.
As far as your actual knuckleball,
Yeah.
What are some of those variables that affected it? You talked about wind.
Sure.
What was your crux? Like,
So
was it dry hands? Was it your fingernails not being long?
So like I wanted to miss Colorado Springs.
Right.
Or Colorado. Like high altitudes, no humidity. Like I loved humidity. I loved constant. Like I needed the weather to be the same all the time. That's why I pitched so well in domes, is
Sure.
because I knew that if I just got the release point right, that I was going to probably have a pretty good day, because I wasn't having all these other variables that were coming into play. I love New York because that's where I really got good,
Sure.
and it was because there was great humidity, and the wind was always blowing a little bit in my face. And I like that resistance pushing against a ball that doesn't rotate. It would really cause it to move erratically.
In terms of coaching for all this through your career, you really didn't have. I mean, you had coaches, right?
Yeah.
And influences, but when it comes to a knuckleball, it's not something that people are sitting there coaching all the way up.
Yeah.
So two questions. The first one is, were you your own coach the entire time, essentially, in terms of your stuff, right? Like maybe you've got your
Yeah.
coach, but you're throwing a knuckleball and you're the master of your knuckleball.
Yeah.
Nobody else really is. Were coaches able to say, hey, this looks a little off to help you, or was it, like you said, all muscle memory and kind of on you?
Yeah, most of it, I would say 90% of it was on me.
Sure.
It was, I had Phil Necro and Tim Wakefield and Charlie Huff on my speed dial. I had like the Jedi Council of knuckleballers that would really pour into me, and they did a great job. And if I was struggling, let's say I had 2 or 3 outings where I just wasn't myself, I could get some video to those guys. They would unpack it and we could have a conversation. But like Mel Stottlemyre Sr., who was my pitching coach in Seattle, he didn't know what a knuckleballer was supposed to do.
Right.
So I would take him my crib notes, and I would say, here are the things I want you to watch for.
So you don't have to worry.
So you don't have to worry about trying to unpack it or messing me up. If these things are in place, I'm going to be consistent. And so if you learn to look for these things that I'm giving you, it'll help me a ton. And that, I had some guys that were really, really good at that could identify that when I couldn't see that.
The knuckleball has been associated with just like a fun pitch now, right? Like
Yeah.
to your point, you see when you go to a big league game, you see all those guys throwing knuckleballs, batting practice, whatever it may be. Do you think it's ever going to come back to a point where you're going to have a Cy Young level knuckleballer, or is it just an old thing now?
That's a good question, and it's a sad question.
Sure, 'cause
right?
It's your baby.
Because one of the things that was always so sweet about it was that it's a real relational pitch. Like I learned it a lot from Tim Wakefield and Phil Necro, and I tried to pass it down to Stephen Wright, who was with the Red Sox for a while. But like presently, there's only 2 knuckleballers in all of professional baseball.
Are you close to them at all?
I've talked to him on the phone a couple times, and I've had guys fly in to Nashville and me work with them, try to help them, try to do whatever I can, because that's what was done for me. But as far as maintaining that consistent level of success, it's going to have to be a perfect storm, because you got front offices that got to believe in it.
Right.
You have to have, and the thing about a knuckleball is like fan graphs. I mean, the metrics don't match up. Like it's hard to evaluate a knuckleball.
No doubt. Especially with where the game's going.
That's exactly right.
You make money based off of your pitches.
That's exactly right. So
Results.
it's going to take a supernatural event in the sense that somebody's got to come out and have success with it and prove trustworthy right from the beginning.
What are 2 things that make, in your mind, your knuckleball the best that's ever been?
Well, I appreciate you saying the best that's ever been. I don't know about that. But I will say the speed with which I threw it.
Sure.
Most traditional.
What was your average speed that you were throwing it through the years? So
Yeah.
when you started doing it, to perfecting it, to kind of.
So from 2005 to 2009, 2010, I would say it was anywhere from 66 to 75.
And were you varying that throughout the?
Yeah, I would try to
game?
work with those
Sure.
speeds, but that was kind of the speed that they wanted me to throw, and that I thought I had to throw.
Sure.
And then in the off season of 09, I went down and worked with Phil Necro, and he said, what are you doing? Like, you're capable of throwing this thing so much harder. Go ahead and try to throw it harder. And so then those speeds from 2009 till the end of my career in 2017 went from 75 to 78 to 85, which a ball coming like this at 85 miles an hour, well, it was a 2012 year. I mean, that's what happened.
No doubt.
Yeah.
What, at some point in that 2012 year, did you say, this is insane, like I've got, like, not that you've got the award in the bag, right? Because I know you're not worried about that. But what are you saying, like, I'm dealing?
Well, I had a stretch right before the All-Star break. And you know, everybody, you hear it, if you're an athlete, you know, you hear that guy's in the zone, or, you know, you see Tiger Woods playing or some great golfer and every shot seems to be perfect. Well, I had that moment for me was about a 6-week stretch in 2012 leading up to the All-Star break. And it culminated in those back-to-back one-hitters.
Right.
And I knew that I could probably do this for a long time.
Right.
I just stayed humble and kept working hard, and that's what happened.
During those one-hitters, do you have obviously you're doing awesome. The knuckleballs are performing great. But on the flip side of that, you've got bad games where you're probably throwing the same knuckleball.
Sure.
That you think is like, this is performing. These guys are just hitting it. What's the difference? Like, why are they? Is it the variables like you spoke about, or is it just some days it gets rocked and some days it's just missing bats?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just, the thing that makes any good pitcher good at that level is having a short-term memory. Greg Maddux told me one time when I pitched in the World Baseball Classic, he said, if you're going to be good, you got to have a short-term memory and a bulletproof confidence. So I just tried to have that. If I had a bad game or a bad inning, I would just try to leave that behind and live the next inning well, like the next 5 minutes well, next pitch well, and try to reduce everything to that singular commitment for 100 different commitments throughout the game that I would throw.
Why Rapsodo?
I just think it's a great tool. I mean, there's so many different things for me. I coach my son. Now I get to give back, right? Like I was given so much. Now I get to give back. And I coach my son's elite travel baseball team or whatever, and there are kids on there that could be good.
Sure. And
what used to take me before the invention of Rapsodo and other mechanisms like that to make a change for the better, it would take me weeks. I get instant feedback right now, knowing spin rate, spin axis. I can change a guy's wrist position. I can get more leverage on his fingers. I can help him in that moment. Like with Oral and throwing bullpens with Oral Hershiser, it sometimes would take me 5, 6 bullpens to figure out what I could learn in one pitch on a Rapsodo machine. So that's one reason. 2 is it's so portable. I can take it everywhere. Right, I can go to my barn. I have a 40-acre farm in Nashville with a pitching mound in it. I can take it there. I can take it to school. It's just it has so many capabilities. It just makes all the sense in the world. As you're developing these young players, they have such an opportunity to sink into that data and make adjustments and improve.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
That's perfect, dude. I'm just
okay. Great.
We're gonna rack through that same questions. I mean, I think that's.
Yeah, you want me to take this off? Or leave it on?
We can't see it.
Yeah, because now we got all the people.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's showtime,
Yeah.
We just want to get a couple of pictures.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm going to get my mic on.
Yeah. Give me a clap.
Yeah.
Clap.